Hello and welcome back to AW Toolbox. In this video, we are isolating a small topic related to style sheet development in some of the later versions of Active Workspace. The goal of this video is to take you through a nuance when importing and exporting and saving style sheets utilizing the XRT Editor. We're going to look at what the XRT Editor does to our files in the volume, and we'll see that the tool will actually rename our style sheet with a unique identifier. This is complicated for the fact that when we export the style sheets out of the system, the names will change. So it prevents some types of automated mechanisms to extract and import the data. But we'll talk about the tools that we can use to make this work and what options you have to keep your file names. To begin with, we have an out-of-the-box iteration of 2312 sitting here. I've got Active Workspace as well as the rich client in the background. Now, this feature and what we're going to be talking about applies to all versions, at least going back to 12.3 with Active Workspace 4.3. So anything past that point will see this type of feature in it, and this video will apply to all of those versions. Now, the individual button clicks and things like that may be just a little bit different, but in general, this should apply to all versions listed. To begin with, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're talking about here. So I'm going to come into the new version here. I'm going to open up the window and go to my XRT Editor, which is in my Active Architect workspace. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger here and click the XRT Editor button on the desktop. And then once the XRT Editor opens, I'm going to go back to the first tab and then change back to Author and navigate to open up a style sheet. If I come in here and I'll switch to Author, I'll then be able to navigate or look at different style sheets in the system. If I select the folders icon or tile in here, and I have a couple of style sheets in the system, I'm just going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to change my layout to a standard left-right layout in the display. And you'll see that I have my style sheet here in the system. I've got changes, where used, attachments, and different pages in that style sheet. If I look at the XRT Editor for this item revision to see the out-of-the-box style sheet that's been applied, I can see this style sheet is called the AWP0 Item Rev Summary Style Sheet. I'm going to go ahead and copy that style sheet and take a look at this inside of the rich client. I could do this in Active Workspace and download it once I find it, but if I come into the rich client and I use dataset name and paste, I can locate it, and one of the things that I want to do is take a look at the name of this file. When a dataset is originally imported, it'll take the name of that file of the dataset creation. So if I say named references, I should be able to see the associated file name is right here. And if I scroll this out, you can see the file name associated to this dataset matches the name of the dataset. So if I were to export this out of the system, then I would get a file called awp0 item rev summary.xml. So let's go ahead and try and export this out of the system. So if I select it and I choose Tools, Export to PLM/XML, this is just one method of many. And then I choose what the file name is for the export. This will just be the top level export import file. And I'm going to choose to spit out the files as well. So I'm going to choose this configured data files export default. And I'm going to go ahead and change the location that I'm saving this. I'm going to go ahead and put it into my C drive, temp directory with some other files that we've been working with. And then at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. So what this is going to do is it's going to export the style sheet out of the system. And when I come into the C temp directory, you'll see that I get the folder that matches the style sheet name, as well as the XML file that then could be taken and imported into a target site. Now, when we edit this style sheet inside of the XRT Editor and choose the Start Edit here, and make a small adjustment to the style sheet, I'm going to change object name. I'm just going to get rid of it by cutting it out of the style sheet for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and save edits. So at this point, I have made a change to the style sheet. And if I go back to my folders, I got rid of object name. So when I refresh, we should see this disappear. I'm going to click off and click on that object again to load the style sheet. And you'll see the object name is now gone. Now, the issue here isn't the fact that the XRT editor doesn't work or anything along those lines. It works great. But when I go back to the XRT editor, you'll notice that the name of the dataset stays the same. However, the problem is the file name behind the scenes. If I come in and I right-click on this dataset and I choose refresh to pull the latest information for it, right-click on the dataset again and choose named references. Now what you'll see is the file name has been adjusted based on editing it in the XRT editor to xrtfiddle with some unique value after the fact. So this could be an issue because when you go in and you try and export this out of the system, the file will be a little bit different. So let me go ahead and choose Tools, Export again to show the example of the PLM export with the files. This time I'm going to call this 2 for the file name, just so we get a different folder. I'm going to hit OK here. It will successfully export, and then I'll go to the C drive temp directory. In the temp directory, I'll see my secondary export here, and in there you'll see the name of the file. So if you had 500 style sheets in this list, it would be extremely difficult to be able to audit them and find which one has the name that you wanted it. So otherwise I would have to open each and every one of these in the system. And not only that, but if you use other tools such as the administration data export, you'll see very similar things with the files associated. So what I recommend doing in this scenario to help understand which of these comes out of the system is you could still edit everything in Teamcenter's rich client. It does help us out a little bit in the meantime, but if you do it that way, you're still tying yourself to that rich client in order to do the work. The other method is to accept the fact that the XRT editor is going to rename the files on you and just live in a way that you can control the data sets. The limiting factor there is essentially you won't know what file pertains to what data set right off the get-go. To prevent that situation and to enable the search here so that you can search the contents of the files, in Active Workspace, I will typically come in and add a value to the top of the style sheet. So starting in those versions, I'll come up to the very top of the style sheet, hit enter, and add a secondary comment. And the comment is going to be the name of the style sheet that I wanted, or the file that I wanted. So if I put AWP0 item rev summary as a comment at the top of this and choose save edits, once you save the edit, then what we're going to do is attempt to download the file or export the file in the same manner and see if we can get it to show up. So let's start by doing this in Active Workspace this time versus the rich client. We'll come over to the Teamcenter folders, and then in there, let's just go ahead and do a search for that style sheet. We can locate it in a couple of different ways. We'll see how this works. So I'm going to click in here and I'm just going to do an advanced search. And in the advanced search, I'm going to pull this down and just do a dataset search. So we'll do based on dataset. And then in the name field, let's clear all to get rid of any owning users. And in the name field, we'll do the AWP0 item rev summary search. And you can see it's right here. So I can see that the edit that I had made is in the code right here. So what I need to do now is just get this out of the system. If I download it by hitting this little cloud icon, I can keep the download, and you can see it's still got the xrtfiddle name on it. So I'm going to come into my downloads and I can see the xrtfiddle is here. It was just downloaded. And if I move this over, I can still see that the name does not reflect the name that I would expect. But if I come into the view and I say search in the, let's go into options, change folder and search options, search, and we want to include the contents of the file. Then from here on out, if I want to define that with the name in the code, I can do awp0, and you can see it begins to filter out the results. So if I edit this, it does have awp0 item rev summary listed right here.